focusing on the third one, friendship evangelism. And that is usually the most successful. It's somebody who knows you, you know them, and that is, and we're going to see some data in a little while that really reinforces that this should be the primary focus. That we will have more success reaching the lost through friends and family than almost anyone. And so we'll look at the data in a moment. Abraham Lincoln said, if you win a man to your cause, you must first convince him that you are his true friend. And when you have gained his heart, then you will have little trouble convincing his judgment of the justice of your cause, if indeed that cause is really just. Convince the man that you love him, and if you have a just cause, you can win him. So it's another way of saying that that relationship that you have with that individual can be very important to get them involved in what you're interested in. And in our case, it's faith. In our case, it's the Lord and getting someone ready for heaven. Now, Jesus was a master at it. So we need to look at some of those examples. In Luke 7, it says, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and you say, here is a glutton and a drunkard. The King James says, a glutton and a winebibber is the King James translation. The NIV says drunkard. But here's what I want to key in on, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. So, people have posed the question, if Jesus came to this city, where would he go? And a lot of people said we could probably see him down on the green. That Jesus would be with people. And as you read through the Gospels, you know that's true. That Jesus, very much, he was a friend of tax collectors and sinners. And, think about it. I know 2 Corinthians chapter 6 says that I'm not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And a lot of times that's mixed marriage. No. It's talking about be careful with the world. That's the context. It's not talking about marriage. In context, there's arguments for it, but that's not the context. The context is idolatry. And we have to be careful with that. And I think sometimes Christians can almost pull away from the world, but we are called to be light. We're called to be light. So if we're not around folks who are sinners, we're going to have a difficulty reaching them. And so Jesus was a friend of sinners. He had a reputation of associating with people that a lot of people would say, if you really knew the kind of woman she was, right? Wasn't that said about him? That Jesus would associate with these people and was actually very gentle with them. For example, the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into town to buy food. If you take time to read all of this, it says that Jesus was tired. And so he had a very active ministry, and actually he physically was tired. So he sent the disciples in to buy food, and he's there by this well, and he engages this woman in conversation. The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? The Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and what it is that asks you for a drink, and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. A cool thing about Jesus is that Jesus often would find common ground. He would find a connecting point to have a conversation with people. And he would look around and just pull something out of the environment. And then he would use that to say, well, we are in this shared experience together. And here it happened to be well and water. And so Jesus is using that metaphorically, and he says, I can give you living water. And so Jesus takes the time. What do we know about this woman's history? The Bible tells you. How many husbands? 5 husbands. And living with a guy. And Jesus gets in. Now, we're going to talk about that in a moment, how to engage somebody. And so, I want you to know, does she have doctrinal issues going on? Yes. That the Samaritans worship, they don't worship in Jerusalem. Is that a problem for a Jew? Yeah, there's doctrinal issues. So Jesus is talking not only to a Samaritan, but a woman, and she has all kinds of doctrinal mess. Now, notice his approach. Does he start jumping on her about her doctrine? No. He doesn't jump on doctrine. He talks to her, and he reasons with her, and he kind of takes some of the edge off, and as the conversation goes along, then he gets more and more pointed, as I see it. He starts out very general about water, and then as time goes along, he starts probing, and he deals with family, and then he gets to doctrine. Think what he does. A lot of times we'll go to somebody and we want to talk about baptism. You know? Don't do that. All right? You need to back up, find some common ground, build a relationship, start talking, casual talk, then get to the important stuff. Right? Don?
I know some people here that they feel like they have to go out and make a friend, and it's almost like they're making a friend just to convert. You know what I mean? And it's almost like they're using it as almost manipulation. When I don't think that's how we are. I think that we make friends because we're friendly people.
Yeah.
And then because we care for this person, because now they're our friend, we want to kind of, tell them the good news.
How many members of the church make friends and don't share the message?
Yeah.
Would you say the majority?
Yes.
I think really the pendulum swings the other way. And actually, if you want to say, hey, you're making a relationship to convert me, that's a compliment. Yes, I am. Really, I am. There's something, I don't have anything better than that to give you. It's not me. I'm dirt. Just plain old dirt. But I've got a relationship that's surpassing everything else I can give you. And so don't take that. People have told me that. I had a guy tell me that in Southbury years ago. And I was younger then, and that kind of bothered me, but it was still true. It's still true. That I'm interested in you going to heaven really more than anything else. So is it so bad to say, yeah, I really am trying to influence you? Yeah. How about Jesus? Could you pin him in the corner on that?
No.
What would be his number one goal? We're going to see it in a moment. To seek and to save the lost. That's his number one mission. And is it a problem being like him? Go ahead. Say, yeah, I'm trying to win as many as I can to Jesus. Yeah, I'm guilty, right? To me, that's not a bad thing. What I would try to communicate, that's how serious it is to me. I want you to know that more than anything else. Jeremy, did you have your...
I have like this. I'm kind of on the fence on either way. Whether you make a friend and then, for the purpose of converting them, but it's not like you don't care about them or love them. That's
Yeah.
the point. Saying, like, if you be friends with someone and you decide, I want to share the good news with them. Okay, that's great. Except all that time you spent making a friend, what if they die? What if something happened to them?
Yeah.
Where they never knew Jesus because you didn't find the right people.
Exactly.
I don't think that you need to beat people over the head and stop being friends with them because they don't accept Christ at that point. But you got to tell them the good news and the truth.
Yep.
If you don't tell them the truth, it's not you.
Yeah. Agreed. And so, Jesus, his agenda. With this woman, what is his agenda? He wants to give her living water, right? And it's okay for you to have that agenda, church. You want people to have living water. That was his mission. That's why he was there. Why is he talking to this woman? Does he just need a drink? Well, he needed a drink. You know, he was tired and he needed a drink. But he had a deeper agenda. All right? He wasn't. You know? He didn't say, I got to eat first before we do this. Right? Verse 39, many of the Samaritans from the town believed in him because of this woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. And so when the Samaritans came to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers. It started with a relationship. He took the time to engage this woman when a lot of men at that time would not. And he took the time to engage her. He not only talked to her, he studied with her. Showed her some things about her personal life and about doctrine. And he went through, but he developed that. He started very casually and then developed it, and it got more and more serious as he talked. And that's a good lesson to learn, all right? That you gradually build up to things. You start out simple, then you gradually build up to deeper things. It's a good approach. So he accepted her as a person. He allowed her to confess her need. She said, I would like to have this water. So he allowed her to express that. He provided insight. He taught her. He just didn't leave her in ignorance. He didn't just say, well, there's doctrinal differences between you and I, so that's enough. I'm done. You know? But he took the time to help her, so he provided her insight, and he offered her a way of healing. And so there's a good caption, I think, for friendship evangelism. He could have used excuses. He could have said, I'm just too tired for this. Any of you ever feel that? Right? That, man, it's been a tough week. Wednesday night, man, it's hard. Right? I've had a long day. You know? And it could be somebody that needs a Bible study, and you say, man, my life is full. Full. And Jesus could have used that excuse, right? He was physically tired and thirsty. He wanted food. But he didn't let that, like Vernon said, that didn't stop him. It's almost dinner time, let's wait until after I eat. Could have happened, right? There's not enough time to have a good presentation. Have you ever heard of it, Christians engaging somebody on an airplane? Yeah. Let me tell you, I've heard stories of people presenting the gospel on an airplane, and for a person to say, before that thing was over, I'm going to find a church, I want to be baptized. Right? And that was somebody that had an agenda, right? Obviously. It has happened. You know? But Jesus could have said, look, I'm just passing through. I don't have time. Right? He could have made that excuse, but he didn't. You could have said, she's a foreigner. You know how foreigners are. They're hard to reach. Right? She's a foreigner. I'm a Jew. She's a Samaritan. A doctrine. Right? Don't beat her up. She's a good girl. All right? But he could have said that. This woman is different than I am. But like I said before, who wasn't different than Jesus? Every person he met, right? You talk about a foreigner. Every human being he met would be foreign to him. That's a good lesson. Right? That he embraced people, and everybody he met was foreign to him. And I don't want people to think I'm a fanatic. Man, if I start doing all this teaching, they'll think I'm nuts, a cult. She has reached the point of no return. She's hopeless. Married 5 times, living with number 6. Would it be possible for somebody today to write her off? What would people think if they see me talking to a woman like this? I spend my time on good prospects. Have you ever done that? I've been guilty of that. You know, I've usually tried to say, I don't care who you are, what color you are, what nation you're from, what language you speak. If you're in front of me, you're a prospect. But sometimes I've been guilty of having this judgmental spirit, of being a Pharisee and not wanting to go there with somebody. I've been guilty. All right? I'm being honest. There have been situations where I've said, this is just, whoa, you know, what a mess. And that's poor on my part. And so Jesus took the time to talk to a foreigner, talk to a woman, talk to somebody who was doctrinally all over the place compared to him, and took the time to teach her and to try to help her. Vernon?
When I say that I can't reach someone, I'm limiting our
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, I can put that in my mind because I'm limited, but God is not.
Yes. And you guys have heard the story about Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know what God will do with that. That's his business. But someone studied with Jeffrey Dahmer in prison and baptized him into Christ. And then he was killed after that. What God's going to do with that, I don't know. All right? But Saul of Tarsus, what did Ananias say when God said, I want you to go talk to this guy on Straight Street?
Spirit does it. He's the chief of sinners.
Yeah, he says, Ananias said, have you heard about this fellow? Right? He's a terrorist. Really? Right? Ananias could have said, he's a terrorist. He kills Christians. And he's trying to inform God. And God says, I want you to go. He's a chosen instrument of mine. Right? And that goes back to your point, Vernon, is that Ananias was trying to be judgmental on this. That's not a prospect, that's not a Bible study I want to have, Lord. And God said, I already know what this is going to turn out like. Most of the New Testament was written by him. And so God knew that. Ananias didn't. He was afraid of him. Nancy.
You know, on the flip side of it, just reminded me of the present case of the woman who went to jail because she wouldn't sign the marriage licenses for the gay couple. And even some of the commentators on the news stations were saying, well, you know, she was married 3 or 4 times. And when it was said, I don't know whether it was at school, whoever said it to me, I said, you're leaving out the most important aspect of this is that she finally knows God.
Mm-hmm.
And she had, regardless of her past.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the way the world thinks. They're ready to jump on people. They don't know this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she really felt convicted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who am I to judge that she's a perfect Christian or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's in the wrong job, I think, you know.
Yeah.
It's a very tenuous thing.
Yeah.
Trying to give a license to homosexuals, but, you know, that's the way the world thinks.
Yeah.
All looking at their sin.
I think this is another good example of friendship evangelism from our Lord. In Luke 19, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. A couple of weeks ago, I did a sermon on classism and how I think sometimes that we can segregate ourselves over that more than maybe even prejudice of skin color. If somebody's in a higher tax bracket than I am, then maybe I will not, you know, how about doctors and lawyers and physicists and PhDs? Sometimes we'll judge and think, well, they're not going to be interested, right? Or this person is wealthy, they won't be interested. The text says he was. He was wealthy. And so Jesus didn't let that stop him. In fact, if you think about it, there's a number of wealthy people that Jesus had Bible studies with. That there was a rich young ruler that Jesus tried to convert. And so Sometimes we erect the barriers. Jesus is not letting him, he's obviously not practicing classism. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, I like this fella, he could not see over the crowd, so he ran ahead, climbed a sycamore tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. So Jesus, he says, "Look, come down out of that tree. I'm going to have lunch with you." And he went to the man's home. He would do that. He would go to people's homes. And he'd spend time with them and socialize with them. He would eat and drink with them. Even to the point that he got a reputation for doing that. For eating and drinking with people. And that shows you something about Jesus. That he was sociable. He was engaging. He would go to their home. And then it says, Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is the son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." So, friendship evangelism should be not based on our convenience, but we need to make it easy for the person we're trying to reach. So, if you want to try to help somebody, don't get your day planner out and say, "Well, if you'll come to my house Tuesday night, we'll have a study." There's nothing wrong with that. But how about going to their house? All right? Now that's going to inconvenience you, but it makes it a whole lot more convenient for them. Right? And Jesus did that. He didn't say, "Okay, come to my office. I got an hour here." That Jesus didn't try to inconvenience people. He would inconvenience himself to go reach that person. And I think that's something to keep in mind if we want to reach the lost. How willing are we to be inconvenienced? That we'll go out of our way to go to your house to study with you. And so Jesus did that. Here you have an example. And I think it's one to consider. Interesting in Scripture, offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. That's something that an elder is supposed to do, right? Elder is to be hospitable. Not only us, but the church should be hospitable. It's a beautiful thing. We went to Paul Hazard's house Sunday night. And there were about 30 of us there, I think. And wasn't it fun? It was good fellowship. And our house churches, that's kind of this hospitality thing where we can open our home up, and the fourth Sunday of the month we're inviting members, people, friends, whoever, to come. You see that being very much a part of the first century church. They were hospitable. So friendship, evangelism, and hospitality, the two go together. Be willing to go to somebody. All right? Don't always expect them to come to you. You go to them and say, "Look, I care for you. I'm concerned about you. I'm here." And we see Jesus was that kind of person. Acts 20. "You know that I have not hesitated to preach anything that would be helpful to you. I have taught you publicly and from house to house." There needs to be house-to-house evangelism. And I think sometimes we forget that. We want to make it Sunday morning, 11 o'clock. That's where evangelism... Actually, I don't see that in the church. I see that should be a pep rally for the church to get busy to go out. Okay? And we're going to see some data in a moment where most people are not converted there. Some are, but not most. How about Jesus? What made him a friend? Why did people love him so? Here's some of it. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" he asked them. Actually, they didn't. They didn't get it. And he'll say, "You don't understand now, but someday you will." But what he did was an example of being a servant. And they had stinky, dirty feet, and he washed their feet. And he served them. In verse 15, I set you an example that you should do as I have done. You set an example that you should do as I have done for you. Now that you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. So, one reason why people love Jesus so much, it wasn't about him. You ever have a conversation with somebody and you're telling them something and they're not really listening? And rather than listening, they start telling you their story. And it's you were trying to tell them something about you, but they're not tuned into you. They're interested in their story. And so Jesus was the kind that he would get involved with this other person, and they realized that he legitimately cared for them. And so, if you and I want to be soul winners, I think we have to communicate to people, I genuinely care for you. To the point I'm willing to be inconvenienced to help you. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? It's a beautiful thing. Jesus did it. And he says, I set an example, and you'll be blessed if you do what I do. And not only will you be blessed, but the world will be blessed. If we can get out of ourselves and we can legitimately care for people and want something good for them. Stan?
You do that a lot, but sometimes it doesn't work. Like the crowd's pretty fed, and you just call them for the food.
Yeah.
No matter how much you put his heart out there and say, preach to them.
Yeah.
It's just can't.
Did he know that before he even fed them? Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to run into things.
Yeah, absolutely. We've served a lot of people through the years. We've given a lot of money away in one way or another. We've given a lot of baby clothes away, right? We've given money away. Sometimes it doesn't mean squat. But I want to tell you, we have some, and I'm not pointing anybody out, but I know it's true, that they came to us with a need years ago, and they are members today. Isn't that good? And I'm not pointing out who those people are, but there are people that came to us in need, we helped them, and they're members here, and some of them are dedicated members here. That's good stuff, isn't it? That's almost like lottery. Okay. Is that, you're putting in, but sometimes you get something back, right? And so, what are we saying? Jesus knew what they were going to do in John 6. And he told them, look, you're following me because I put on a good buffet. But he still did it anyway, right? He did it anyway, knowing there's going to be some people that will abuse it. And so, in fact, one of the people that he washed their feet was Judas. You know that, right? I remember Paul Faulkner said, I would have washed his feet. Because he knew. He knew what Judas was going to do. But he washed his feet anyway. And I think Jesus was showing his love to Judas to the very end, giving him a chance right to the end. And that's probably why later he did what he did. As he's thinking about the love of Jesus, Here's another one. Wives, in the same way, submit to your husbands. You submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives. Friendship evangelism? Yeah. And where is the responsibility? Who's going to be inconvenienced? The believer. You don't know the jerk I married. Right? It can happen. But what does Peter say? You need to live in such a way that they'll be won by your behavior. Is that hard? Absolutely. All right? But here's the challenge. If you don't live that way, if you're fighting them, it's just, right? By the way, any of you see War Room, the movie?
Keep on hearing about it.
Oh my goodness, guys, go see it. Go see the movie. And Julie and I saw it a couple weeks ago. She and I are bawling, crying through this thing. And you know, I'm not one of these stand up and shout hallelujah guys, but I almost stood up and shout hallelujah. Because it was so well done. It was so not typical of what you see in a movie. I want to encourage you to go see it. It's a good movie. If you're married, go as a couple. Have them turn it into a date night. All right? And but it'll fit in, I think, to what I'm trying to say here. So that it's very much fit in to this text. Okay? So keep that in mind. I'm not going to tell you about it. Just go see it. So really what we're talking about, for evangelism to be really good, it needs to be everyday evangelism. All right? That I need to be living in such a way that if I'm on the job or at school or in the neighborhood, that my influence means something. Someone said, is there enough evidence of Christianity in your life that you would be convicted? That's a good question, right? Or would they say, a coworker or somebody, I didn't know you were spiritual. That's not good, right? That's not good. If you work and live in a place and they don't know,
Why don't you ask?
yeah. I think that what we're reading up to this point, they should know something, right? That there should be something distinctive about us. What does Peter say? Peculiar? You are to be a bit odd? Okay. Isn't it true? That you should be a bit odd? That you are a bit different than what's going on in the office and the water cooler? There should be something that sets you apart. That's what the word saint means. That's what the word holy means. It means I'm to be set apart. You know, there should be something different that people will look at me and say, that's odd. Right? I told you one of my better moments, playing racquetball in Southbury years ago. Played with these guys for a long time, and after several months of playing together, this one guy's real type A driven guy. He says, you're the weirdest man I've ever met. And I looked at him and I said, why? He says, I never heard you cuss. He says, I've hit you I don't know how many times. You don't even swear. And I'm like, well, I'm a Christian, so he knew that. But I said, I don't try to do that because of who I am. And he said, all right. And so, but, that's the point, isn't it? That there should be something that someone would say, that's odd. That's odd. That's peculiar. That behavior or what you do or don't do makes you stand out a little bit. And so that's the everyday process that if we're not doing that, we're not going to reach the lost. All right? I think, and you see it in the 7 churches of Asia in Revelation 2 and 3, this issue of the church becoming acclimated to the culture is a serious issue. Right? That in this group, the 200 of us or so that meet here, if what we do is not a bit odd about what happens out there, isn't there something wrong with that? Okay? Yeah. And so that's why Jesus is so upset with most of the churches of Asia, is that they had got so acclimated that there was nothing distinctive about them.
I think too, in today's world, it's not just of what you're saying of being odd. If they get any little inkling that you are, and you're working with a group of people, then it's like you're a target.
Mhm.
They'll just be constantly, oh, she's a Christian, or oh, she doesn't do that, or she won't So, I mean, it's hard. You gotta walk a certain,
Yeah. It's okay. You're called to be peculiar.
yeah.
You're called to it. And I know we're not in high school anymore. I don't think. We might have a few. All right? When you're in high school, you're under all that pressure. You want to fit in, right? But Christians are called to be peculiar. And we're called to be, there should be something about us that somebody would be, we're going to look at a great text if I have time. We are to be the aroma. We are to be, I love that idea. I'm to be the aroma of Christ. That I should smell good, not stink, but I should smell good, that somebody would, that's refreshing, that they're drawn by something, right, Nancy?
You know, I work with intellectuals, and a couple of the teachers have come and gone in their PhDs. And this year I'm teaching an AP composition course to juniors. I was trained 3 years ago at 7. It was an extra group, as there was this year. I get the third section. So there's a young English teacher, and she's kind of out there. And she wasn't really talking to me for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden, she finds out, oh, you're teaching the AP course? I said, yeah. It was like, you're a Christian. You are therefore, you're not up to it. You're not intellect. There is some kind of a stigma, and I don't know if you found it when you were getting your degree, that if you're a Christian, you are a fool to follow Jesus. You're ignorant, and they're so surprised. And the kids really like me. As conservative as I am, and that sounded a little conceited. I'm not saying that. The surprising thing is, yeah, I can teach an AP, and yes, I love Jesus. The world is, I don't know if you see it, Jeff. They just assume that, put her in the corner over there because she doesn't really know enough about teaching. And it's such a fallacy. We know more because God gives us that wisdom every single day to see things that they're not even seeing.
Yeah.
But far be it from them to acknowledge it, because
We know better.
yes, of course.
That a lot of us who are Christians are very good students most of the time.
Absolutely.
And especially as adults, that we're usually some of the better students. And so, but the world wants a pigeonhole.
Yes, absolutely.
And so here's a survey that I was talking about, 22,000 people. They were asked this question: why is it that you selected the church that you are now a member to become a member? So why are you in the church is basically the question. Only 2 to 3% in 22,000 people became a member because they walked in. All right. Now, Alan walked in recently. He saw the sign out there, Wednesday Bible class, wasn't it? And he's a walk-in. But if we survey this group, I bet most of us would not be walk-ins. All right? So 1 to 2% are walk-ins. 2 to 3% sometimes become members because of programs. Little Lambs. We've had people baptized as a result of our Little Lambs. That's a program. But only 2 to 3% are usually become a part of the church because of a program. Now this is shocking. Only 5 to 6% because of the preacher. I know there's exceptions, but with 22,000 people, only 5 to 6% because of the preacher. Special needs, 1 to 2%. Like I told you, I know there's members here because of special needs. We helped them, and they became members because we helped them. It led to Bible study and that sort of thing. Visitation program, 1 to 2%. Bible school program, a bit higher, 4 to 5% because of the Bible school program. I know some people that come, and they don't come on Sunday, but they come to our Bible school program. Okay? And so, but that's kind of what we see there, 4 to 5% because of the Bible school, 1/2 of 1% because of a crusade. That's kind of enlightening. Especially now, it used to be a bigger deal, but in more modern times, the crusade is not very effective. Should you not do it at all? No, you can reach them. I was thinking several years ago, remember Walter Maxwell? We had some baptisms, but every one of those were people we were already working with. It wasn't like somebody new from the community. None of them. All of them were people that we were trying to influence already. It just, Walter came and he sealed the deal, kind of thing. And you'll find that a lot. If you're working with somebody, you can bring somebody in. They might be baptized during that, but you've already been trying to influence them. Planting and watering, God makes it grow, kind of thing. This is where we're going. How many become part of the church because of friendship or family? How many of you, raise your hand, because of friends or family, you are part? If you look around, that is the majority. So we just verified that. Okay? I'm part of the church because of a girlfriend. All right? A girlfriend invited me, and I married her, but Julie invited me. I wasn't the Christian she was. So she invited me to church. I came thinking the building would fall down. But I came, a young heathen, and God had mercy on my soul, But a friend brought me, invited me. We only dated for 2 weeks when the girl invited me to go to church with her. She knew that he needs it. He really needs it, and I did. But friendship evangelism, and so, okay, look at the list, guys. Where should we put our focus? That's where we're going with this. That if I can convince some of you that look at your friends, look at your family, who can we study with? Then there's a greater chance that we might be able to reach them. And so that's where we're going in the next few weeks, is that we're going to be talking about this, and hopefully then we'll figure out how to do it. Okay? And before I forget, the second Sunday, not this coming Sunday, the following Sunday's fellowship dinner, let's turn it into a family and friend day. Donnie's going to be preaching, and so invite them to come to worship, and then invite them to stay and eat afterwards. Okay? So let's do that the second Sunday of October. Let's have a family and friend day, and since we're talking about this, here you have biblical examples. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the two who heard that John had said and who had followed Jesus. The first thing Andrew did was to find his brother Simon and tell him, "We have found a Messiah," and he brought him to Jesus. So what is that? Family evangelism, right? Andrew found Jesus first, and what is the first thing he did? He went and got Peter. That turned out well. That Andrew found Christ first, and then he went and got his brother and brought him in. So there you have family evangelism. Here you have friendship. The next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth." And then finally, he tells Nathanael, "Come and see." So you have friendship evangelism. And so family and friends bringing others in, to the Lord. So any thoughts? I want to stop there. We'll resume in 2 weeks. Any final thoughts? Dale Pauls preaches at Stanford, and Dan Cooper referenced this in his CD, and I typed it out to share with you. It's a reflection of 1 Corinthians 13 with the idea of friendship evangelism. The kind of evangelism that we're talking about is patient. This evangelism is kind. This evangelism is not envious. It is not competitive. This evangelism does not boast, points away from self and to God. It is not proud. It's neither arrogant nor self-righteous. This evangelism that we're talking about is not rude. It is courteous, respectful, and sensitive. It is not self-seeking. Its purpose is not personal aggrandizement. Indeed, it surrenders all personal rights. It is not easily angered or exasperated. It keeps no record of wrongs, rejections, or failures. This evangelism does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It finds no pleasure in worldly techniques of persuasion, but it is confident that truth, honestly proclaimed, will prevail. It protects others, their vulnerabilities, their confidences. It always believes the best. It always hopes the best. It never gives up. Such evangelism never really fails. I thought that was a good connection of the love chapter and this idea of personal evangelism. It fits in nicely. Any thoughts? Toynbee?
What you just read is, we have that framed in our house. I see it every day, many times. But it's common for people to, well, I've heard many times that people don't care unless they know you care.
Yeah. That's a slide somewhere in there. Just didn't get to it. Very true. People don't care how much you know until you show them how much you care. All right. Don?
I think it was Mark Twain that said, I don't hear a word you're saying because who you are is screaming so loudly in my ears. And if we don't leave here and walk the Christian walk, we can talk about Jesus from one face. And that will change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our burden for all of us as you go out on the job or the classroom, wherever you go. You know, my neighbor, how I treat my neighbor, you know. All of that is a reflection. And Ephesians 5:1 says, be imitators of God as dearly beloved children. That my call and your call is to imitate him. And that's to be real. And there's times we have to repent. All right? I am not always good. All right? I'll say it before Dale Waterbury does. We used to have a church softball team, and he likes to remind me. So I'm going to tell you guys so I don't have to hear it again. I hit a long ball, and I'm trying to get to home. And the outfielder threw the ball in, and I'm coming in from third base into home. There's a rule in the church league. You're not supposed to take out the catcher. Okay? I told Dale recently I didn't like the catcher. In fact, I didn't like the whole team we played against. And I had reffed them earlier, like a week before, and they had roasted me because I was the referee of the game. And so I didn't like them. And that makes my sin even worse. I'm not trying to brag. What I did was sin. Okay? I came in, I saw who it was at home plate, and I leveled him. Knocked him right out. And I'm standing over him, and he's down in the dirt, and I'm going, what have I just done? You know, Dale still remembers. It wasn't one of this preacher's finest moments. Okay? That was wrong. And it was an embarrassment. We had on our shirt, Waterbury Church of Christ. Okay? So there's a bunch of Methodists, all right, who probably say, I'd never go there. Now, isn't that sad? All right. I'm confessing. That was wrong. And I know in my heart why I hit him, you know, and that makes it even uglier. Okay? So he's right, you know, I was wrong. And so that wasn't one of my better moments. Yeah, I've repented, you know. I should have gone to him and said, I'm so sorry, I'm a sinner, I'm an idiot, but I didn't. But that would have been a better thing to do. All right. So, anyway, don't think that I've got all this figured out. I'm a sinner saved by the blood of Jesus. Right? But I'm willing to acknowledge that that was stupid and it wasn't a good at all. You know, and I probably influenced negatively people towards us because of who I am. But I want to remind you, you have that same responsibility, right? And I bet if you're honest, you screw up too. Right? So when we need to, all right, confess it, acknowledge it for what it is, right? I'm stupid, Lord, please forgive me. All right? Help me to be better. And you and I, let's encourage one another to do this, right? So I'm encouraging you to live holy, all right? If you have an unbelieving spouse, 1 Peter 3 says, live in such a way that you might be able to win them because you're different. All right? If you're around unbelievers on the job, try to live in such a way that they would acknowledge that you're different. Okay? And what I want you to do is start praying about your friends and family. Next Wednesday, Todd, let's put that on our prayer list. Todd is going to lead us in prayer. Right, Todd? Next Wednesday. We're going to have prayer session next week. That's what we do the first Wednesday of the month. And it would be a good thing for us to pray about this thing of reaching out in the next few weeks for friends and family. And I want you guys to be praying about it, thinking about it. Let's come up with a list of people of saying, hey, this person just might be interested. All right? And we'll talk about this and see what we can do about it and see if the Lord can use it. Okay? Remember the last Sunday of October, one of our families